Most people stop developing emotionally around the age of 8. So many times.
And if there's been trauma.
It's yes.
It's really
so we
hard
look
to
at
go
somebody
through.
and we think they should know better, but it's like they haven't grown in that area. And it's because the Lord has blessed us to grow and mature in certain ways. And we look at them, we're like, why are you doing that? You're only young once, but you could be immature for the rest of your life.
Why do we need to forgive? If you think of it about like in college, you have your core classes and your elective classes, and you really do need all to graduate, but you definitely cannot graduate into your next part of life if you don't get those core classes covered. And forgiveness in the Christian life is like one of those core classes. You will not graduate into the purpose that God has for you. You will not walk in the fullness of life that God has for you if you are living in an unforgiveness state of life. You just can't, because what God is, He is forgiveness. The very essence of the gospel is forgiveness and restoration. And so if we walk in His likeness, we have to live forgiven. But it's not just because we're to offer forgiveness for someone else. We've heard this before, but it is so true. Living with unforgiveness is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. It doesn't work that way. When you are living in unforgiveness, you drink that poison, it only hurts yourself. So I know sometimes it's so hard because it's like, well, they don't deserve it. They're not repentant. They don't even know they've hurt me. That's how unaware they are, or they think they're justified in what they've done. That's between them and God. And that is a really hard thing to get your head around, but that is between them and God. But what you're called to is you are called to live a life of holiness, a life of sanctification, and a life of freedom. And all of that comes with living a life of offering forgiveness at all times.
I think the way to honor God while you're navigating relationships with people that might be unhealthy is really prayer and wisdom, because most of the time we'll respond to someone else's unhealthiness in a way that makes sense to us. We want to protect ourselves, we want to set a boundary, but we really have to ask the Lord, what's the wisest thing to do? He may give us something totally counterintuitive that honors Him, honors the person, and still keeps us safe. So I try my best to not make those moves based on emotion or hurt, but ask the Lord and truly move in wisdom so a person can see the love of God as well.
Be the first to know all the latest Better Together updates. Visit bettertogether.tv to sign up for our weekly emails and never miss the latest news.
You said something about weakness versus wickedness, Tony, which I thought was great, because that gets into one of our YouTubers. They wrote this question: how do you love your neighbor well and still have boundaries for yourself? Like, you've been exposed to the weakness of the person. And how many times can you forgive for the same sin? I think we've talked about that. Forever, infinitely, don't count. Just don't even count.
Always.
I want to please God, but I also want to have healthy boundaries. Where's the balance? This is a great question. It's a great question. And I think we have discussed this week what it means to have boundaries that are self-centered and self-protective versus God-led, because God will give you wisdom. God wants to honor Himself. God wants people to see His love. So only God can show you the boundary to set that still points the person to God, still leaves room for God to work in their heart, keeps you safe, but also gives room for His grace. Like, He just works out all the things. And so boundaries are really great. But we have to submit them to the wisdom of the Lord. Have you guys had situations where you've had to set some boundaries and maybe revisit, or maybe this boundary is permanent, or what's been your experience with boundaries?
I have to be honest. I am not really great at boundaries, okay? I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Boundaries is porous.
I just really love people. I've actually needed friendships to help me do this really well.
Same.
I've needed people to say, Tony,
do you see what's happening?
You've gone back a few times now. Like, I just need friends to help me shape those boundaries, which is why community is so powerful. Because if you really do have great, godly, loving friends, they are going to step in and help guide you and lead you like, hey, like, I just don't think that's healthy. I'd actually be concerned if you did not leave, if you did not put a boundary in place. And so for me, it's been really important to have accountability in friendship and openness in friendship so that I am able to say, hey, this is happening. Like, am I tripping? Like, do I need to set a boundary here, et cetera? So.
And I think we also have to define what it means to have a boundary, because I think that what many people do is they use that term to basically say I'm cutting you off. Yeah. The way that I think of boundaries is I think of them as property lines, right? So it's like, I have my house. This is the land that I am responsible for within the boundary lines, okay? Yep. I'm responsible for everything that happens on this piece of property. This is what I own. When we get over the boundary line, now we're talking about what you own and what you're responsible for. And I think we have to have a mature conversation with somebody who we need to establish a boundary, because a boundary is basically saying, look, here's what I'm accountable for. This is what I own. This is the piece that you're accountable for. This is what you own. Now, if you decide that you're not going to be responsible for your piece, that's totally fine. But that creates a scenario where now we have to talk about, okay, well, what does that look like, right?
I'm still cut my grass. You letting your grass go?
You let your...
I'm still cut my grass.
I'm still cutting my grass.
Gonna be on that line.
But what you're not going to do is you're not going to come over on my property and throw trash and all this stuff. Right. I would say that, at least in the church, I think we actually sometimes have the opposite problem, which is enmeshment.
Yeah.
It's like, instead of me saying, here's what I own, here's what you own, it's, oh my gosh, you're not taking care of your stuff, so let me take care of your stuff. And now I'm resentful because I'm taking care of your stuff.
Right. And you didn't acknowledge it.
And you didn't acknowledge that I took care of your stuff. And it's like, well, the person never asked you to do that, but you also did not clarify where I end and where you begin.
And clarity is kindness in relationships.
It totally is.
And boundaries, I also think that we love to turn really holy things into really unhealthy things. Like, boundaries are biblical.
Yeah.
I mean, the Lord put boundaries on Adam and Eve. You can do all of this over here. You can't do this right here.
This thing right here.
Okay? And really, I think boundaries can be healthy if we recognize that boundaries are really a guide for how people should treat you. One of the boundaries that I have in friendship is that I don't like joking on each other. Like, I don't like that. Now, some people love it, ragging on each other, kind of like joking, making fun of. I've came from a verbally abusive background. It just doesn't, it's not good for me. I can politely say to a friend, because I know that this isn't good for me, I can politely say, hey, would love to make this relationship a little bit more deeper, would love to get intentional. I also know that clarity is kindness, and I want to be really good at being kind to you by explaining to you some of the boundaries that I have around my heart. Like, I don't do well with like joking on each other. I don't do that. I'll never do that to you. I would really appreciate if you didn't do that to me. It makes me feel very unsafe. Well, now I've given people a boundary that doesn't exclude them from loving me. It actually helps them love me better.
Yes.
Yeah, it informs.
And that's kindness. Like,
and the kindness is if they cross that boundary line, you can say, hey, I don't know, the approach to them is much easier and more because you've been clear. We talked about this before.
I think that it's great for us to give unconditional love like God gives to us. And the truth is, boundaries are biblical. And so God sets boundaries with us as well. So we should try to be like God and give unconditional love and also have boundaries that are biblical and that are of Him. So what does it look like for you to ask the Lord, how can I love your son or your daughter with the same love that you love me? And how can I set boundaries like you did, God, with my best intention in mind, not to exclude me or to hurt me, but actually to protect me? How can I protect the people in my life like you do, Lord?
A boundary without consequences is a suggestion. It's actually not a boundary at all. And again, that's a weakness of mine. Like, I'm just like, it's okay. Even with how I parent my children, I'm like, if you do that, this is gonna happen. And then it don't happen, okay? And I'm still buying stuff in the mall, frolicking around. And it's actually not doing my kids a service at all. It's doing them a disservice because they're not understanding that boundaries come with consequences.
Ooh, see, to me though, this is where the faith piece becomes important. The boundary should also benefit the other person. It should not just be about me and how I'm protecting myself.
They may not see the benefit,
of course. But it should.
That boundary shouldn't hurt them.
It should be something that's either going to help them grow, help them mature, or whatever. But it shouldn't just be he crosses
That's
mine.
the
out.
God
This is a
led
good
part of it.
example,
Yeah.
what you said. I mean, really, in friendship, we probably shouldn't be razzing each other, joking, you know, being unkind in a funny way. Like, that's probably, so it's actually making that person a better friend to every friend they have.
Yeah. So YouTuber, when it comes to setting your boundaries, we just say pray, ask the Lord for wisdom, and then decide what is reasonable. What's the nature of your relationship? How often do you interact with this person? What's wise? Do you need to say something verbally, or do you just need to decide something non-verbally until y'all agree upon it? I think there's not a right or wrong way to do it, but if you approach it with prayer and wisdom, with the goal of honoring God, then it'll work itself out. And be willing to change if the boundaries change. Right.
All right.
Okay, so Leah has a really good question. She says, how do you love your physical neighbor who is dealing drugs?
I'm sorry, Leah. This
Leah,
is really sad.
I'm sorry.
And putting your own family at risk.
We have tried to show love and kindness, but they're lost in their brokenness. So I don't know if this is like the laws involved.
Yeah,
but
I would think that there's something that needs to be considered at least there about the law.
And the thing is, too, some things that lead to really dysfunction, I think, in Christian spaces, we think that God wants us to be unsafe.
Correct.
Right.
Like, that is not, I mean, that kind of unconditional love still,
That's like
you have a
physical abuse.
family to
You can't
protect.
ignore danger.
Right. So I don't know if you can move, but I would first honestly be praying the Lord's protection, you know, that He's your advocate. Pray the Lord's protection all over that family, because if you're in a place where you cannot control your